Hey there, everybody. I wanted to bring back to the channel a game I have played quite a bit, but not that much in a while, and that is Replay Baseball. They also have a very user-friendly computer version of the game as well, based off the board version. But this, of course, is the board version, and one of the things that Replay Baseball does that is, unique, like a couple other recent games have done, and that is the player interaction where you check both the pitcher card and the batter card. And so what I'm showing off today is a new season I bought recently. Seems to be in vogue now with a lot of sports games going to this season as being a newly produced season. So 1980. And you can see the Phillies and the Royals were the World Series participants. One of the neat things about Replay Baseball is the book that previews the season. Like you see here, it says team leaders, team recaps by replayers. Now, this is an interesting thing that Pete Ventura does, is he allows gamers to write season recaps for an individual team and then submit them to him. He may edit them just slightly, but for the most part, pretty much just uses the things that the gamers send in. And then major in-season moves, ballpark cards, player cards, team stats, lineup cards, instant replay chart, things like that. So let's go to the next page, and you can see it's the introduction, and I won't read the whole thing, it's kind of long, but there are your standings, and it gives you the postseason recap with all the standings for the American League on one page, and then of course flipping over to the oops, did I miss the National League? Where's the National League? I know it's on here somewhere. Oh, he does the American League first, I guess, with the batting leaders and so forth, and then the National League is over here. Okay, that's where we go. But the interesting part is the team recap. Each team gets recapped by replayers, and you can see, like this one was done by Tony. I almost don't want to pronounce the name because I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce it. I guess it's Buda or Butta. I'm not sure. Sorry, Tony, if I mispronounced that. If you're listening to this. Joe Rundy, I guess that's how it's pronounced, did the Boston recap. Now, I had the privilege, not in this season, but in the 1979 season, I did the season recap for the San Diego Padres. And so if I ever buy the 1979 season on the card set, I'll get the book with my little recap in it. One of the interesting things about 1980 season, everybody focuses on George Brett, but there's also this guy named Joe Charbonneau, who was like the phenom in Cleveland for that year. And Kurt Conlon was the writer for the Cleveland recap, and certainly talks about Go-Go Joe Charbonneau or Super Joe Charbonneau. So you've got, all the recaps for all these different teams. Pretty nice little recaps, actually. And of course, I always loved, most people didn't like them, but I always loved the Houston Astros uniforms back in the day with those multicolors. Let's see here. We'll go further on. Keep going. Keep going. And we finally get to major player moves and multiplayer cards, or multi-team cards, I should say. So some players have cards for two different teams. If they switched leagues particularly, it was like that, although this looks like Ed Figueroa has two cards, even though he stayed in the American League. So it gives you that information. The Phantom DH, this was an interesting phenomenon in 1980 that I believe Earl Weaver was the culprit on most of these. And I'd never really heard much about it until I read this in this book. It says the DH listed in the starting lineup must bat at least once before being substituted unless there's an injury. The rule was added after the 1980 season to close a loophole discovered by Royals manager Earl Weaver. He would list one of his inactive starting pitchers in the starting lineup as a phantom DH, and then when his first time to bat came up, Weaver could decide which of a number of players to use as a pinch hitter for his DH, depending on the situation. For example, if there were men on base, he would need or if he needed a base runner. Pitcher Steve Stone was used most often in this capacity. Box scores from that time would list the pitchers as having played a game at DH, but after the amendment of the rule was adopted, these appearances were erased from these pitchers' records. So you can see here, It looks like he started doing this in September when they had the call-ups. You can see he started Steve Stone as a phantom DH, and then later on put Terry Crowley in. But just an interesting little phenomenon there that Earl Weaver is trying to sneak a fast one by everybody. There are your Gold Glove winners and your Cy Young and MVP for the National League. And I'm assuming there's one for the American League somewhere back there. And there's a little ad here. I guess that's a vintage 1980 ad to kind of give you the flavor and the feel of being in 1980. All right. Another thing that they do is they have team cards. Each team gets a card. Overview of a suggested lineup, the division they're in, the record, the manager. Kind of neat. They started doing them in orange here the last couple of years. Usually they're just the same color as the team cards. And this one you can see Bobby Cox was taking his first stint with Atlanta. And this is the opening day matchup, first game played in 1980. For either league, always had the traditional opener in Cincinnati, and in 1980 Atlanta was the opposition for that. And the ballpark cards, you can get them in this newer fashion or the old-fashioned vertical version, which just used 1d6. This is going to use 2d6s to get ballpark results. And a nice little picture there of Riverfront Stadium. All right, another thing that has been added of recent, and I think it's something that may have been started with the History Maker game and kind of caught on with other engines, and that is an instant replay chart, or instant replay chart, I guess you'd call it, instant results chart. So if you wanted to play just one team and then, kind of somewhat sim the others without a computer, you could do that based on these numbers that are in the chart. And the little instructions here will tell you how to do that. So I thought that's kind of neat. One for the AL and one for the NL, depending on who the home team is and who their matchup is. And they even have it if you wanted to do interleague, even though there was no interleague at the time, or if you wanted to do the Philly Kansas City, you could do an instant results chart on the World Series and then play it out and see if the instant results chart give you a similar result to the actual game itself. All right, the scoreboard or scorecard, score page, or whatever you want to call it, for the game from Replay Baseball. It's a pretty neat little contraption. It's got some interesting things on it. It's got your spot here for your batting order, and there's enough room here that if you write the starting lineup up top of the square, there's room to put a second player in the same square. If you write a little smaller, you can do it even smaller. There are your starting lineups, and it's also got a place to put the defensive ratings for each of the players, so that you don't have to go back and look at their cards. You can look right here and see what the defensive ratings are. This is Atlanta, the visiting side, and this is Cincinnati. Now, Atlanta had some bad defenders, and the way you tell how their defensive ratings are, the infield, you want the first number to be, it's between 1 and 5, and 1s are the best. 2s are second best, and 3s and 4s going up the line here. And also with the error ratings, that second two-digit number, you want that to be as close to 66 as possible. 11's the worst, 66 is the best. Anything in between is, based on the ratings. So you can see we got an 11 here, an 11 here, a 16 here, and a 23 here. So some kind of shoddy defenders there. And Cincinnati maybe has a little bit better than that. You see second baseman Junior Kennedy. Joe Morgan had gone to Houston by now. He's a 1 and a 56, so he's almost up to 66, and the 1's as best you're going to get. So he's going to make a lot of plays and very few errors, Junior Kennedy. However, if you turn it over here to Bob Horner at third base for Atlanta, he's a 3, so he's got an average range, but if there's an error check, he's going to always make an error, unless we roll an 11. That's the only thing that's going to stop it, because the number has to be higher than the rating. So if we roll an 11, he'll make the play. Anything else, don't roll snake eyes, he's going to commit an error. And then there's some spots here for notes and stuff as well. And there's enough room here to put 6 pitchers into your thing. The only thing I would change on the score sheet is usually when you're doing a line score, the walks come before the strikeouts. To me, this is backwards. The walks should be here and the strikeouts should be here. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll white this out and just change it around, but that's just a minor nitpick. But typically, in any line score for a pitcher, the walks always comes first. All right, so this is a replay of opening day. I'm not going to play the whole game. This is just to get your, to kind of whet your appetite, for lack of a better term. for this game and let you see it in action for a few innings and kind of talk about the game components and the structure of the game as we go along. All right, so what we're going to make sure we have is the fielding card. So whenever the fielding card or the stadium card is called upon, we will have it. All right, these are the actual starting lineups. And the starting pitcher for the Reds will be Frank Pastore. He was 13-7 with a 3.27 ERA. And the starter for the Atlanta Braves was Knucksy Phil Niekro. He was 15-18 with a 3.63 ERA. All right, so, and there's another thing I wanted to bring up as well, and it came up with the very first batter for Atlanta in the opening game of the season. They had an outfielder that only had 15 games. I think he had 11 games and 19 at-bats. That was a starting center fielder, name of Eddie Miller. Now, he was not carded in the original card set because he had so few at-bats, but a free PDF. Now, I didn't cut this very well. You can see I was kind of shoddy with my cutting there. I should have cut that a little bit closer on the line. But the information is there. That's the main thing. So we got a card for Eddie Miller because that was on the free site to do the PDFs, and there's a lot of game companies that are going to that as well, with the being able to get the extra players free on a PDF, except for maybe the biggest game company doesn't do that, but the ones that are so-called lesser games do that. I don't call them lesser games, but maybe by popularity they do. So if you look at the card I cut out for Eddie Miller versus the card that gets cut from Replay Games, you can see that the size very comparable. The only thing different is that the card stock they use is much better than the card stock I'm using. I use 110 card stock. I'm not sure what card stock these are, but these cards are very well done. The quality of the components in this game is right up there with Payoff Pitch. I would say those two are top notch compared to all the other games. All right, so let's go ahead and play a few innings and see what happens, and we'll get the results. And like I said, let's put the Cincinnati result up top, the board for the stadium, so you can have a feel that you're playing and that you're in Riverfront Stadium. So there are your cards, and the dice, the game engine dice, for those unfamiliar, use a red, white, and blue function, and they are accessed in this order. You read the red one first, the white one, and the blue one. And just as a quick recap, the red die tells you what column you are in both pitcher and hitter. The white die tells you what row you're on for your hitter, and the blue die tells you what row you're on for the pitcher. And in fact, the numbers on the pitcher are in blue to remind you of that, and the numbers on the batter card are in black, which mimics the dots on the dice for the white die. So we'll go ahead and get going here. Let you see some samples of play. And the one knock on this game, I guess a lot of people have, is it's kind of like APA, where you never get the results off the playing cards. You always have to go to a board. You get the number you need, but you got to go to the board to get the finalized result. And there's actually two versions. There is, I guess, the older fashioned spiral bound book that you flip depending on what column you roll in the red die. You can go with that, or they also have a standing trifold, which is kind of hard to show on a video, but when you're playing solo, it works great. But you've got this trifold board with all the results, so I'm going to stand that up back here if I can get everything working the way I want. So it's kind of in the background, and I will just read off what happens because the camera is now stationary. I'm not going to pan around and get people dizzy. All right, so if you want to start the first inning, start of the game, we're going to have Eddie Miller versus Frank Pastore, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we roll a 6-5-5. 6 tells us we're in the sixth column on both the pitcher and the hitter. 5, we go right here to Eddie Miller, column 6, row 5, and get that number 36. Pastore, we go to column 6, row 5, get that number 3. We add the 36 to the 3 for a 39 in column 6. And we go to column 6 on the trifold board and look at number 39. 39 can be found right here. There's a range, 37 to 41, which says it's a strikeout. And I knew it was a strikeout right away because of a 36, because anything you add to 36 is going to get you 37 to 41. So any pitcher or any batter that has a 36 in his column 6, that's his strikeout totals. So there's a lot of 36s here, it's a lot of strikeouts. So in this case, Eddie Miller strikes out. And there's one away, and now we go to second place hitter Jerry Royster, second baseman for the Braves. We roll a 5-6-3. So a 5, column 5, row 6 is a 3 with an asterisk, and an asterisk means if he reaches, he will attempt to steal. So a 5 and a 6 gives you a 3. A 5 and a 3 gives you a 1. So you add the 1 to the 3, and you get a 4. And a 4 is a ground out to short, and so therefore there's no chance of a steal because it's an out. But had we rolled in the say a 5, and the blue die was a 6 or a 5, that would have been a 3 or a 4, and he would have reached. But the fact he had a 1 up here means he had good control, so he prevents the base hit. All right, here's Gary Matthews. All right, we got a 6-5-4. 6-5, again, we're on a 36, so that means he automatically strikes out. You don't even have to check anything else. But if you wanted to, 6-4 would make this a 2. 36 plus the 2 is a 38. We already saw 37 to 41 was a strikeout. So there you go, and that's 3 up, 3 down here in the first with 2 Ks. So Frank Pastore did very well for himself. And now Phil Niekro, Nuxie, will come on to face Dave Collins, leadoff hitter, center fielder for the Reds. And we get a 4-5-6. Column 4 is where your fielding checks are going to come from. You'll notice on the pitcher card that column 4 does not have numbers but has positions. So what we're looking at here is the blue die is a 6, which means we're checking the second baseman. So the 4-6 brings us to the second baseman, which in this case is Jerry Royster, who's not very good. But we'll see, he might be able to make the play anyway. 4-5, not 6-5. 4-5 is a 3. So the first number is a 3. The 4-6 is a second baseman. And what we're going to add to that 3 is Jerry Royster's defensive rating. And on the card, you can see his number is a 4. So we're going to add 4 to that 3, get a total of 7. And a 7 is a ground out. So it's a good play, but had this number been a little higher, we'd be possibly checking for an error. But in this case, Royster was able to handle it. And there's one away. Brings up Ken Griffey, speedster. We get a 4-2-1. So we're back in the fielding check again. 4-2 is a 6, and a 4-1 is the first baseman Chambliss. Chambliss, on his rating, defensive rating for Chambliss, he is a 2 range with a 44 error rating, which means you roll 2d6s, and if it's over 44, he makes an error. If it's under 44, he makes the play. So that's better than average. 33 would be average. That's better than average. And 2 is above average because 3 is average. So he's a good defender. So we're going to add the 2 to the 6, and we get a total of 8. And again, that's a ground out. So we'll just say he grounds to first base unassisted for 2 quick outs. And that brings up Dave Concepcion, shortstop. We get a 2-5-4. 2 and a 5 is a 16. And a 2 and a 4 is a 1. That's a total of 17. And a 17 on the player board, a 2, column 2, row 17, or number 17, says strike out with bases empty or fly out to center with men on base. Chance for a sac fly. But with the bases empty, it's a strikeout. So in this case, Nuxie gets the strikeout. And after 1 complete, we are scoreless here at Riverfront Stadium. So that's just how simple a inning can go, and it goes a lot faster when you're not doing a video. You can just roll right through this and get through this game half hour or less usually. Usually around a half hour. That's what I would call it, as a half hour. But when you first learn the game, maybe 45 minutes. All right, here's Bob Horner. Remember him from back in the day. He had a lot of promise till he got hurt. 6-4, and a 6-4 is going to take us to our orange box. Anytime you roll an orange, a result on the player card, which goes to one of these orange boxes, that's the signal to go to the fielding chart. So right now, I'm fielding the stadium chart. So right now, the number in the box is a 9, but that's subject to change. So what we're going to do is go to Riverfront Stadium and look for the column 6 result, which is right here, and then find out if he's righty or lefty batter. Horner's a righty. We're going to roll 2d6s, and depending on what we get, It could change that number. Right now it's a 9. So if we roll to 36 through 53, there will be no change. If we roll 54 or higher, we'll get a better result for Horner. If we roll a 35 or less, we'll get a lesser result for Horner. It's a 52, so that's the same. It's not going to change. It's going to stay as a 9. But like I said, it could have changed. So it stays a 9. And then the 6-3, because the blue die originally was a 3 on Pastore. So that makes that a 2. We add the 9 to the 2, and we get an 11. Now, an 11 in the book, on the fold-out, column 6, number 11 says a single to right field, but there is an asterisk there. Asterisk means there's a chance for a home run. Not a good one, but there's a chance. So on all 11 and 12 rolls, we re-roll 1d6 and see if he can get a home run out of it. In this case, with an 11, you got a 1 in 6 chance for a home run. With a 12, you got a 5 in 6 chance for a home run. But this one's a 1 in 6 chance. So we'll roll 1d6. If we roll a 6, it's a home run. And I just rolled a 6. So how about that? Bob Horner beat the odds and gets the home run. And again, had the ballpark changed, had we rolled a 2d6 result to change that to an 8, then that would have been a 10, and there would have just been a single and no chance for a home run. But you can see where the ballpark could affect that. So Bob Horner hit 35 home runs on the year, just gets one right there off of Pastore, and it's 1-0 Braves. Here's Chambliss, 5-1-6. 5-1 is a 4D, and what the big letters mean here next to the number is if he reaches, there's an action chart with an alphabetic code, and we would go to the action chart D. So in this case, 5-1 is a 4, and 5-6 is a 4 also, which makes a total of 8. And an 8 in column 5 is a walk, and that's typically what you get in column 5s are your walks. So since Chambliss did reach on the walk, we will go to action chart D. So we go to the action chart, and the action chart is broken up A through M, but we're looking at action chart D, which talks about possible stolen bases, caught stealing, pickoff errors, pass balls, things like that. I'm going to roll the 2d6s and add them up together. So that would be an 11, not a 65, but we're on the number 2 to 12. And then the blue die will tell us which fielder is involved, or it may check a rating. So in this case, we get a 10. So a 10 on D is a stolen base. So it says it's just a plain old stolen base. There's nothing else to it. He's going to steal the base, and that's it. So Chambliss did have, let's see, does it give a stolen base? He had 7 stolen bases on the year. So he's going to walk and steal second base before Murphy even gets to bat. So that's where the automated steals come in. It's pre-programmed in the game. So here is Dale Murphy, a very young Dale Murphy. All right, 262. Now 2-6 is in the shaded area. So again, we're going to go to the shaded area, and there is a raised number. Here is a 4, but that can change, and that raised number is going to check the range of the outfielder. But right now, he's on a 4 on column 2. So we're going to roll 2d6s on this column 2, and right now it's a 4, but if we roll anything less than a 52, that's going to reduce that number and make it easier for the outfielder to make the catch. So we roll the 2d6s, we get a 35. So a 35 is going to drop this all the way down to a 2. So it went from a 4 to a 2. And that means that the outfielder now only has to have a range of 3 or more, or 2 or more, I should say, to make the play. Actually, it has to be 3 or more. It has to be higher than this number. So instead of having to be a 5 outfielder, which would probably never get it, he only has to be a 3. Now the blue die on the original roll was a 2. So we go over here, and the blue die tells us it's the left fielder. You can't really see it on the chart, but it splits it up. 1 to 2 on the blue die is the left fielder, 3 or 4 is the center fielder, 5 or 6 is the right fielder. So in this case, we're checking the left fielder, and the left fielder is Foster. And if we look at Foster's range, Foster has a range of 5. So in this case, he would have caught it whether it was a 4 or a 2. But for outfielders that are 3 ranges and so forth, they might have had a hard time. But Foster's got excellent range, so that number there means his range is a 5. 64 means he hardly ever makes an error. You would have to roll a 65 or a 66 to commit an error. Now 2 means that his arm is not quite as good as it used to be, so You want a higher number there in the arm rating, but good outfielder all the way around. So George Foster was able to get to that with no issue at all. And that's out number 1. Murphy is retired. All right, here is Biff Pocoroba, the catcher. That's why I'm only going to do a couple innings. I want to go through each at bat and kind of explain the mechanics of the game and why it is what it is. So 2-4. 2-4 is a 16. 2-2 is a 1. That's a 17. And we had that once before. 17 with the bases empty was a strikeout. But with runners on base, it's a fly to center. So in this case, there is a runner on base because Chambliss had walked and stole second. So it's going to be a fly ball to center field for out number 2. No sacrifice because he's not on third. So Pocoroba flies out for out number 2. That brings up Luis Gomez, the shortstop. Now, he's only a 191 hitter. Some people, with first base open will walk him and pitch to Niekro, but he's such a low hitter, they're going to go ahead and pitch to him, take their chances. And we get triple fours. So 4-4 is a 1. 4-4 is the shortstop Concepcion. Concepcion is a 2. So 1 plus the 2 is a 3. That's an easy ground out to end the inning. So that's why they pitched to him. But the home run by Horner gives Atlanta a 1-0 lead as we go to the bottom of the second. So probably only have time to play 3 innings, but did at least want to show this in a little detail for people who maybe haven't seen it in a while or at all and are curious about it or want to be curious about it. Here's George Foster, 4-3-4. Again, we're reading them red, white, and blue. 4-3, so the red 4 means fielding checks. So 4-3 is a 19. 4-4 is the shortstop, and that is Gomez. And Gomez is a 2. So we add the 2 to the 19, get a 21. Well, with the infield back, and that's what you have options for on this column 4, you can do infield back, you can do halfway, which is like double play depth, or you can do infield in. With the bases empty, we're infield back. So the 21, it says single off-fielder's glove, but there is an asterisk there. So there is an umpire chart right here on column 4. We're going to roll 1d6 and see if the umpire calls him out or safe. Now on a 21, he's going to be safe 4 out of 6 times. On a 20, he's only going to be safe 2 out of 6 times. So 21 means it's more likely to be a base hit, but not necessarily. Gomez could stop this. So the roll is, if it's a 1 or a 6, he's out. Anything else, he's safe. And it's a 1, so Gomez made the play. How about that? Little Luis Gomez was able to throw Foster out for out number 1. Here's Dan Dreesen. 3-5-4. 3-5 for Dreesen. And we're back to the shaded area again for column 3. So we've done column 6, we've done column 2, now we're going to do column 3. This number is a 3, but it's subject to change. Again, we're going to roll 2d6s and see if that number changes. If we get a higher than 43, it's going to increase his chance of a hit. If we get less than 26, it's going to take away his chance of a hit because you want the higher number. All right, so we're going to roll the 2d6s again. We get a 33. So it's going to stay a 3. He was a 3 originally, and 33 falls in this range, so no change there. So that number is a 3. For Niekro, the number was a 4. So with column 3, row 4 is a 2. You add the 2 and the 3 together, you get a 5. So a 3 in column, a 5 in column 3 is a short fly out to left. However, had that number changed from a 3, say, to a 5, then we would have had a 7, and a 7 would have changed that to a single. So that's where the ballpark again could have made a difference, but in this case it did not. It is simply a fly to left, and there's 2 away. Murphy puts that one away, and it brings up the veteran Johnny Bench, who's near the end of his career by this point. Bench, a 1-5-3. 1-5 is a 4, and if you notice here by the number 4 there is a caret sign. That is, if a runner's on third, that would be a sacrifice fly situation or possibility. All right, 1-5 is a 4, 1-3 is a 2. So a 2 plus the 4 is a 6. And veteran replay people know in column 1, anything 2 through 6 is a strikeout. Same with column 2. So it would not have been a sacrifice fly. It would have actually been a strikeout. But had you been in these numbers, 7 through 10, a pop-out would have been the original roll, but if the batter has that caret symbol, it becomes a sacrifice fly. But in this case, simply a strikeout, and Bench is gone. So are the Reds here in the second. So after 2 complete, it's 1-0 in favor of the Braves. And I believe, I didn't look it up, but I believe, well, I don't know who won the game actually in real life. I didn't look. I got looked to get the lineups, but I didn't really pay attention to who won. All right, so now pitcher Phil Niekro is batting, but he does not have his own batting card. I believe if I wanted to print off the extras, there are batting cards for the pitchers. I didn't go that far with this. So, but they do have a batter rating card right here, which means R1 means he uses pitcher hitting card number 1. So what we did is we went to pitcher hitting card number 1, and that's what we're going to use. And if you notice, column 6 on pitcher hitting card number 1 is a lot of 36s, and we had mentioned that 36 means a lot of strikeouts. And I got a visitor down here that I'm going to try to keep at bay if I can, but Miss Tabby sometimes likes to jump up here. May have to try to prevent that. So I can keep Miss Tabby in her place down there, but she is making herself known. All right, so here's the pitch. It's a 2-2-4. 2-2 is a 55, and a 2-4 is a 2. It's a 57, and that's a looping liner again. The Rays number is only a 1, so as long as the outfielder doesn't have a 1 rating, he'll make the play. And in this case, Foster, well, the blue die will tell you where the batter goes or where the hit goes. It goes to center field, so that's Dave Collins. And Dave Collins, if we look at his number, Dave Collins has a rating of 3 in center field. So this would have had to been a 3 or higher to be a base hit. But on the pitcher card, you're not going to get that, so that's just a 1, and it's an easy out. Little can of corn for out number 1. Takes us back to the top of the order for Eddie Miller. 2-4-4. 2-4 is a 2, and this low numbers in columns 1 and 2 breed strikeouts. So this is probably going to be a strikeout. 2-4 is a 2. 2-4 is a 2 there. It's total of 4, and that is a strikeout because it's 6 or less. So Miller has struck out both times. He's gone. 2 down for Jerry Royster. 3-1-4. 3-1, and again, we're in the shaded area. So right now it's a 4, but we're going to re-roll and see if we get a different number. Numbers of 45, so according to Riverfront Stadium, column 3, a 45 is 43 to 54, so it stays a 4. It could have been reduced, but it's actually going to stay a 4. And then Niekro had a 4 on his original roll, so column 3, row 4 for Niekro is a 2. So the 2 plus the 4 is the 6, and that's a short fly to center to end the inning. But had this changed to a 5 or a 6, that would have been a base hit if the ballpark had changed him. But Niekro, rather Pastore was able to stop that. So that ends the inning. Nothing doing for the Braves. Bottom of the third, it'll be Ray Knight to lead off against Phil Niekro. And this was Ray Knight's first real. He may have played in '79 too, but '80 was like his, I guess, is really where he really established himself. All right, 1-6, because I think Pete Rose went to the Phillies in '79. Maybe in '78, but I think it was, no, '78 was with the Reds. '79, I think he went to the Phillies. 1-6 is a 45. 1-2 on Niekro is a 2. That's a total of 47. And a 47 is a strikeout with no one on base, or it's a potential double play with runners on. But with the bases empty, it is a strikeout. So Ray Knight could not handle the knuckleball for out number 1. Here's Junior Kennedy, second baseman. Kennedy, a 5.26. 5.2 is a 27, and you got that little caret sign, but not going to help him here. Nobody's on base. So that's a 27, and a 5.6 is a 4. Total of 31 in column 5, and a 31 in column 5 is a fly out to center. Like I said, it would have been a potential sacrifice fly had a runner been on third, but with the base is empty, that's not the case. So 2 down, and now we go to the pitcher hitting card. In this case, Frank Pastore uses pitcher hitting card number 3. So we've got pitcher hitting card number 3, which is in theory a little bit better than number 1, but still not very good. 2-2 is an 11, and that's going to probably be a base hit. Usually 11s are base hits in column 2. So 2-2 is an 11. 2-3 is a 1, which is the best you can have in this category, but I still think it's going to stop it. Makes it a 12 in column 2, which is a single to left. So Niekro had no chance. Pastore just found a good roll and got a base hit. And in fact, that's the first hit of the game for the Reds. So we're back to the top of the order for Dave Collins. 5-5 is a 15. Column 5, row 5, 15. Column 5, row 1 is a 2. That's a 17 total. 17 is an infield single. I'll show this on the chart. Column 5 of 17 falls in the 16 to 20 categories. An infield single. We're going to check column M on the action chart for further action. So it's a base hit for Collins. Puts runners at first and second. And now we go to action chart M right here. But there's nobody on base. So, I'm sorry, action chart M. I was in K. My bad. So we're really checking, we're not checking stolen bases. We're checking for pass ball, wild pitches, and things like that. So we're going to roll the 2d6s. Actually, all 3 of them. But we're going to read them red and white. That's a 12. So a 12 on action column M is a pickoff with a asterisk there. So we go down to our little origin here to the key chart to read everything. It says same as pickoff above, the pickoff attempt is made on lead runner. All right, attempted pickoff. If blue die is higher than the pitcher's hold rating, runner gets back safely. If not, the runner is picked off base. Okay, the blue die is a 2. Niekro's hold rating is a 3, so it is not higher, so the runner gets back. I'm sorry, no, I got it backwards. It's not higher, so it says if the blue die is higher than the pitcher's hold rating, he gets back. Since it's not higher, 2 is not higher than the 3, the runner gets picked off, and the fact that it was a pick-off asterisk means it's the lead runner. So they picked off Pastore, who was just daydreaming, I guess, out there. So it's a 1-6 pickoff. And that's going to end the inning. So how about that? Frank Pastore got picked off, not paying attention, kind of daydreaming out there. And we go to the 4th. Still 1-0 in favor of the Atlanta Braves. So I'll do one more inning just to finish it off. And I think by now you should get a feel for how the game is played. Here's Matthews, 5-3-1. 5 and a 3 is a 5D. So if he reaches, we go to the action chart D. And a 5-1 is a 1 for Pastore. Total of 6. So a 6 is a base on balls. However, if you notice here, Pastore has a raised number above that number 1. Tabby's getting into my stuff. I had to kick at her. That was that noise. Sorry about that. I didn't want to break stride with what I was doing. So Pastore has that raised number of 3. So if we come over here, the normal result would have been a base on balls in column 5 with the number 6 result. However, if the pitcher has a raised number beside his column 5 grade and the result is a 6, 7, 8, or 9, base on balls, roll 1 die. If the die is higher than the number, scores a base on balls. If not higher, count as 2 balls. So Pastore has a 3 right here. So we're going to roll 1d6. If it's a 1 or a 2, then it's a 2-ball count. If it's a 3, 4, 5, or 6, the walk will stand. But let's see what happens. It's a 1, so he's going to fend this walk off and turn it into a 2-ball count. And Matthews is back at the plate. 3-6. Now 3-6, I'm glad I finally rolled that. Anytime you roll a red 3 and a white 6, you get to this point here, and this is the left-right check in the game. The majority of the right-left checks in the game are handled right here in this result. Now, Matthews is a righty, Pastore is a righty, so a 3-6 is a 42. So if we go to column 3, row 6, column 3, row 6, you're going to add the number from Pastore. In this case, that's a 2. A 3-1 is a 2, so that's a total of 44. So we come over here to 44, and it says here versus a left-handed pitcher, it's a single, but versus a right-handed pitcher, it's a leaping catch to the shortstop. So when a right-handed batter gets this roll, 42 is his card result. We're going to add whatever it is from the pitcher, and it's going to turn it into this section of the numbers here, 43 to 47. If he's facing a lefty, he singles. If he faces a righty, he makes an out. That's regardless of how he splits, where it's the generic split in the game. And also, some players have splits in their column 6 based on their left-right stats in general, or specifically, I should say, but this is a generic one. So in this case, So righty on righty, so he's going to line it to short, and there's one away. And if a runner had been on second base, there'd be a chance to double him off, but there's nobody on base, so we just drive on from there. And we get Bob Horner, who homered his last time up. We get a 5, 5, 6. 5, 5 is a 15, 5, 6 is a 4. It's a total of 19. And 19 in column 5 is an infield single, and we're going right back to action chart M, just as we did previously. So action chart M, we get a 3 with a blue die of 6. So a 3 is a pickoff error, P-O-E, pickoff error. So go over here to pickoff error. Possible error on a pickoff, roll against pitcher's error rating. If roll is higher, all runners advance one base on the throwing error. So the pitcher's error rating, Pastore, his range is a 3, but his error rating is a 25. So if we roll 2 D6s, a red and a white, and they come up totaling more than 25, he will make an error. And if the blue die is a 6, it'll be a 2-base error. So we get a 55. That is a pickoff error. It's only going to be one base because that was not a 6, but it is a pickoff error. He tried to pick Horner off, and that gives the error to Pastore on the pickoff error. Horner is now at second base for Chris Chambliss. So I'm glad I'm getting a variety of results to check on the board to show everybody. 1-1 is a 10. 1-1 is a 2. That's a total of 12, and that's a single up the middle. Runners advance one base. If the runner is a 4 or 5 speed, he gets 2 bases, or if there are 2 outs. Well, Horner, if we check his speed rating for Horner, his speed is only a 2. So he's not very fast, so he will not get the 2 bases. He will only be able to go to third. So runners are now at the corners with 1 out for Dale Murphy. So Pastore in a little bit of trouble. Double play depth, they're looking to turn 2. It's a 5-6. 5-6 is a 2, and a 5-6 is a 4. So that's a total of 6 in column 5, and that is a base on balls. However, again, column 5, row 6, with runner on first base only or bases full, count as 2 balls. Well, bases are not full, and there's not a runner on first base only, so it will be a walk, and that will load the bases. So now if we get that result again, it would be a 2-ball count. But now the bases are loaded with 1 out for Biff Pocoroba, the catcher. See what Biff can do. 5-5, we're rolling that a lot. 20, and a 5-3 is a 1. It's a 21, and a 21 is a base on balls. Now the raised number is not going to be effective because that's only effective if you are in the 6, 7, or 8, 9 range. But we're in 21, so 21 says that is a base on balls, and you check column M for further action. So Pastore has walked in a run, so Horner will score. Everybody else will move up a base, and we go to column M for further action. So we roll a 7 on the column M result. 7 says wild pitch possibility. So we're going to say here, if the blue die is higher than the wild pitch rating, all runners advance. Well, the wild pitch here is, or the blue number is a 2. His wild pitch rating is a 6. So it says here, if the blue die is higher than the wild pitch rating, all runners advance. Well, obviously, Pastore didn't throw any wild pitches because you can't get higher than 6. So he cannot throw a wild pitch at all. So even though he walked the batter, it was not a wild pitch. All right, so bases are loaded. 1 run is in, and here's Louis Gomez. Still only 1 out. Again, a red 5. I keep doing that. 5-3 is a 3. 5-1 is a 1. It's a total of 4. That's a ground ball to short, and with the infield halfway, it's out at second. Other runners advance. So how about that? So it's a fielder's choice, 6-4. But the run does score, being Chambliss, to make it a 3-0 game, and Murphy will go to third base. So now runners are at the corners with 2 outs, and the pitcher, Phil Niekro, the batter. 6-6, that's a 58. So boy, when it rains it pours for the Reds. Had it rolled anything other than a white 6, with that red 6 it would have been a strikeout, but the white 6 puts it at 58, which means it's going to be a hit. And 6-4 is a 2. That makes a total of 60. So a 60 in column 6 is a single to left field. Runners advance one base. Runner on second with 5-speed scores. With 2 outs, runners on second with 3, 4, or 5 scores. So check the runner on, well, the runner's on first, not on second. So runner advances one base. So Gomez will get to second base. Niekro will reach on the single. And scoring is Murphy. And all of a sudden, it is now a 4-0 ball game. And Pastore probably needs to be relieved at this point. Let's roll one more time. 5-6 again. It's a 1K, so that helps with the 1 there. 5-4 is a 2. It's a total of 3. 3 is a ground ball to second. Run on second holds on ball to short. I'm sorry, it's halfway. It's out at second. Runners advance again. So it's another field. I'm sorry, that's a third out because there were 2 outs there. So it's a third out, and that is going to be a ground ball to short to end the inning. But 1, 2, 3, 3 runs come in, and it's 4-0 in favor of Atlanta. As we go to the bottom of the 4th, and I'm running out of video time, so I'm just going to do a couple quick at bats. Here's Griffey. 4-2. 4-2 is a 6. 4-6 is the second baseman Royster. It's a 4, so that's a total of 10. And with the infield back, that's simply going to be a ground out. No error check. You have to be an 11 or more to be an error check. 1 away. Here's Concepcion. 3-1 is a 4. 3-4 is a 2. That's a total of 6 in column 3, and that's a short fly to center field for out number 2. And here's Foster, last at bat of the game, probably. 2-6, and we're going to check the shaded area. 2-1 is a 2, so it's a 55 here. We're going to roll on the ballpark chart. The 15 turns that into a 1, so the range only has to be a 2 to catch this ball. And everybody on Atlanta has a 2 range, so that is a fly out. And the blue dot